Okay, I think we're set to go. Welcome all guests. I'd like to call the meeting of the Public Arts Commission of the City of Palm Springs for Thursday, November 14th, 2019. Call to order, and Mr. Verada, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Commissioner Gladstone,
Present.
Commissioner Yanni,
Present.
Commissioner Pritchard,
Present.
Vice Chair Merrigan, and Chair Sheffer.
Present.
Very good.
And Commissioner Murray has an excused.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda for the,
I thought I'd do it when we got to it. So, just,
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting, Thursday, November 14th at 4 p.m.
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Okay. All right. This is the time that has been set aside for members of the public to address the Public Arts Commission on items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Public Arts Commission, and agenda items if the member of the public cannot be present later in the meeting at the time the item is heard by the Commission. Additionally, members of the public may address the Commission on each item listed on the posted agenda at the time each item is heard. Testimony for public hearings will only be taken at the time of the hearing. Any person who wishes to speak at a public hearing may do so when the public hearing is called. Although the Public Arts Commission values your comments pursuant to the Brown Act, it generally cannot take any action on items not listed on the posted agenda. And 5 minutes is assigned to each speaker. I think we have Dan Spencer. If you could come up here, and if you guys want to come too, bring a chair. But what we need you to do is talk into the microphone. And the first thing you have to do is spell your name for the person who does the minutes, who takes them off a tape. So, thank you. Green light. You need it to be, yes. Okay.
My name is Dan Spencer, and I'm going to speak a little bit about Palm Springs AIDS Memorial. And I'm going to read my remarks to be efficient. My name is Dan Spencer. I'm a local architect and nonprofit volunteer. Today, I would like to say a few words about memorials, a bit about a personal perspective, and then about Palm Springs. Memorials obviously serve a wide range of purposes, but for me, memorials create an engaging public realm. As you can see by my one-page handout, memorials come in all types and sizes, and they're still being built for memorials for AIDS. My personal history is that in the 1990s, I was in Minneapolis, and I was building a wide range of new types of buildings. One of the first HIV/AIDS clinics, social service centers dealing with people living with AIDS, and one of the first gay youth centers that had no gender-specific bathrooms. So my team and my firm entered a national competition and ended up designing the Key West AIDS Memorial. And I worked with the Key West local community to build that and complete that design in 1997. Since moving to Palm Springs 11 years ago, I've been involved in a lot of nonprofit work and designed a recently completed Peace Labyrinth Oasis Plaza in Rancho Mirage at the Unitarian Universalist campus. In 2013, a small group of us, consisting of Todd, behind me here, Todd Hover, art historian, writer Robert Atkins, and local designer Jeffrey Jurasky. And we studied the possibility of having a Palm Springs AIDS Memorial. We evaluated and explored numerous sites in Palm Springs, including where public art currently exists, and eventually developed a concept that wove the the Plaza Street Art Together in a very active area along Arenas. It was not built. We didn't carry it any further, but it was one of those moments where we really thought that it was an important thing to look at in this community. The elements that we identified at the time are things like information, website connections, shade seating, lighting, and focal sculpture. For a variety of reasons, that didn't go ahead, but recently, with the development of the new city park, the possibility of an oasis reflective setting located next to outdoor gathering space seemed possible. And I contacted Anne, and while there's no definition design in mind at the moment, without the context and local design language, it's my hope that the Art Commission, along with City Parks Council and numerous local organizations, would see that its time is right to create the Palm Springs AIDS Memorial. I know this commission is looking at studying your process of how you move forward on special projects, and I hope that you consider using the Palm Springs AIDS Memorial as a test model for your investigation and process. Thank you very much.
That's
I'm
great.
open for questions.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Actually, the reason I asked Dan to come was we were talking about a new RFP process or registry of artists, and I think it would be nice to have, if someone from the commission would be interested in just being part of Dan's committee so that we can tie it in with what else we're doing. But if anyone has any questions just about the memorial, please.
Just one question. Have you been recently in touch with any of the Arenas merchants?
No, because we backed away from that concept, and so we haven't explored that any
I
further.
asked that solely because we have been in conversation with them in the last couple of months about activating Arenas as a very artful area. And one of the walls, you're talking about doing a few murals, and one of the walls is my direction is north-facing wall of Hunters, and it would need to be a mural or some sort of educational, because they want it to be representative of history, probably from a stone wall forward or whatever, but it would be on panels that would be attached to the building. So that might be something you wanted to consider. That could be a place for this memorial to exist, perhaps, because it would educate people who don't know the history leading up to this. So it could be a twofold thing.
Sure.
Memorialize and educate.
Maybe you could set them up with the
Yeah,
Arenas people.
Yeah, it's Dean at Black Book who's the current person to contact.
Okay.
And we could exchange emails and get you in touch with him.
Okay.
And then as the park goes forward, we've been talking to Mark Rios and some of his team, and then everything got put on hold because they weren't sure when they'd go forward. But now I think it's time to re-engage with that. So
I just think this is a really great idea. I was actually wondering if we had a memorial in the city, and I guess I would ask you, are there any other markers, like at Desert AIDS Project or any other kind of sculptural memorials in the Coachella Valley? Memorials to AIDS, victims of AIDS?
The ones that I know of, there's a LGBT military memorial that was one of the first in the nation, but I don't know of any others.
I think there's sort of a meditative garden at Desert AIDS Project, but I don't think there's anything like the wall that's here visiting at the bank, and that's going to be at the library, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is a history that travels around. But yeah, I think as long as we have someone from Desert AIDS Project and someone from Arenas and someone from the park to all come together and figure out what's the best way to do this, I think. So does it sound, are you volunteering, Commissioner Pritchard?
Yes, I will smile and nod and volunteer.
Very good. Thanks. Anything else? All right, well, thank
thank you very
Thank
much.
you for coming.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
You're welcome to stay. Okay. The next item is the approval of the minutes from September 12th. Has everyone had a chance just to take a look? Like so many of our meetings, sometimes things that we specifically approve, for example, we approved funding the mural by Gabby Vasquez. However, in a location that hasn't worked out, and so it's going to be changed. So the minutes are correct as to what we said that day, and we can't go back and change it, but I just call your attention to that sometimes it's not the best source of what's actually developed since then. Does anyone have any corrections? May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from Thursday, September 12th, 2019.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Okay. The next thing we have is a presentation from Brooke Hodge from the Architecture and Design Center. Why don't you come up and sit down?
And I'm sorry if I misunderstood, but I only brought my own copy.
Okay,
of
well,
the one
if you
page
don't mind passing it around, we should be fine.
was emailed
With
earlier.
Mara and I, Brooke approached Mara and I to say, was this something that would come under the jurisdiction of the Arts Commission? And in fact, it doesn't, because it's not a mural and it's mostly murals that are specifically called out. It's not a sculpture that needs to be approved by the city council. So, but we thought that the rest of the commission would like to hear what they are doing at the Architecture and Design Center.
So I'll pass this around to the commissioners, and then if anybody in the audience and from the public would like to see it as well.
Okay.
And I did email it so that copies would be available.
I'm sorry, just spell your first and last
sorry.
name. please, for the-
Brooke, Brooke, Hodge, Hodge, and I'm Director of Architecture and Design at Palm Springs Art Museum. And the project that I'm reporting on is a temporary installation by the artist Jim Iserman of vinyl decals that will be applied to the exterior glass panes of the A&D Center on the north and east facades, and then on the interior on the west facade, because that's where we have the original metal grills on the exterior. And we are organizing an exhibition of Jim Iserman's work. He's a Palm Springs-based artist. He's lived here for more than 20 years. He lives in one of the Wexler steel houses in North Palm Springs. And we have several works by him in the museum collection. And the exhibition is called Copy, Pattern, Repeat, and will be on view at the Palm Springs Art Museum Architecture and Designs, Design Center from January 25th, 2020 through late 2020. The close date has not yet been solidified. And so the idea of the vinyl decal installation is that each pane of glass will feature a vinyl decal in a slightly different variation on the pattern. And on the handout, you can see where we did a test of one of the vinyl decals so that we could see what it looked like on the exterior of the building. And then the artist subsequently has designed each variation for each of the window panes. And when it moves inside the building, then the pattern becomes slightly smaller. And the colors are true to the drawing that you see from the artist to the right of the photograph of the A&D Center. And it's meant to serve as a metaphorical hedge that encloses the exhibition, which will be inside the space. And the exhibition includes many, many of the artist's flower paintings, flower lights, flower mobile, a flower chair sculpture, as well as a new series of 12 paintings that are inspired by the architecture of the Architecture and Design Center.
Sounds like fun. Anyone?
So it's are all the windows going to be covered?
Yes, and as you probably are aware, the windows are already covered with 2 layers of UV film, which create a mirrored surface from the outside, so that visitors walking down Palm Canyon or walking through our parking area do not see inside the building. And we have felt for some time that often, because the signage is discreet, that visitors and passersby don't know what's going on inside, and they don't necessarily know that it's an exhibition space. And so this will be one way to basically create a sign that there's something exciting going on inside. And so it's meant to be temporary. We had the test decal up for just over a year, and it was just peeled off with no
Really?
problem.
It didn't peel off by
It didn't
itself.
peel off. It didn't peel off itself, and the colors didn't fade, and it didn't do anything to the film that's already on the windows. And then from the inside of the building, you can see the pattern that's applied to the outside. So not only will that, when it's on the east and the north facades, it will be visible on the interior and the exterior of the building.
Will it be backlit at night? Will you be able to see it a little bit?
Usually
Or is
at
it
night, we keep after the space closes to the public, we keep the work lights in the ceiling on, so there will be some light in the space. And then on Thursday evenings, of course, we're open until 8 p.m., and then it will definitely be very visible. And in the drawing, the white areas are actually transparent. So there's this sense, so then you see that mirrored film through them on the outside, and you see,
That's right.
from the inside, you see out to the outdoors.
Actually, since the city sponsors the free Thursday nights, we should call some attention to that in January, and also to the Gerard Clark exhibit as things that we're somewhat involved with.
Great. Well,
Thank you. All right.
Thank you very
It
much.
is.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Very good way to solve that. Okay. Thanks, Brooke. So the only report I have is that our joint project with the Palm Springs Art Museum called the History of Suspended Time was on the consent calendar for the city council on Wednesday night, and it was approved with the understanding that there were a lot of technical issues that had to be resolved. But as far as putting that sculpture on that site, that's been approved. So you'll notice that the first of our action items is to approve the terms for the agreement with the Art Museum. We have not been able to do that yet, but we have set up a meeting on Tuesday with all the people from the city that would be involved, like facilities and the assistant city manager, and then people from the museum who understand what needs to be done. And hopefully in that meeting, we can figure out how it's going to be installed. But we have the go-ahead to do it, assuming that the city can just work out. There are some issues. There are some issues that were raised in the staff report that I hope we don't ever have to face. One of them being West Nile virus. If an animals drank from the water, would they get West Nile virus? So I hope that doesn't come up. That's really the only part of my report, because the second half of our meeting is really devoted to discussing a lot of the plans that are coming up. So we'll do that. And as a result, for item C, the action item, I would like to amend this to read that we approve the expenditure of up to $35,000 from the Public Arts Fund, subject to an agreement with the Palm Springs Art Museum, so that they can go forward knowing that we've approved the funding and the city will have to approve the contract.
And so we did not already make this action, like?
We did, but it was
okay.
because we knew it had to go to the city council just for approval to do it on that piece of property. So we did vote.
Right, and contemplating a future agreement between the city and the museum, these terms would lay out from the Art Commission what the city would be responsible for and what the museum would be responsible for.
And the other thing is, on our actual agenda last time, the amount of money was $24,000. And if you remember, Dr. Reddy was here, and he suggested that we make it 35, just so that we wouldn't have to go back if it needed it. So, so I would like a vote on this. It would read, approve expenditure of up to $35,000 from the Public Arts Fund, subject to an agreement with the Palm Springs Art Museum to install the sculpture.
Madam Chair, before we vote, should we talk?
It's been suggested that since you're an employee of the museum, this money actually will be spent on the site itself, but no, no, I think. But I think we're done discussing it, so you just need to abstain from voting. So you want to
Recuse.
take the vote, right?
But should it, we're not approving the proposed terms of agreement.
No, that's what I'm saying. Cross that out. Just go from approve
It's just being
the expenditure.
So we're not adding it at the end, we're changing it
Yes.
at the beginning.
Added at the end, approve the expenditure subject to agreement with the Palm Springs Art Museum. So there has to be an agreement for how the money's going to be spent, and then, but we will have approved the expenditure of the money.
But shouldn't we take out proposed terms of agreement, because we don't know what they are?
Take out proposed terms and just go subject to agreement. So it does sort of turn it around. But the key part is approve the expenditure, so that we will have done that, and then subject to the agreement. So we are not actually giving money to the art museum. We are spending money along with them. Is there a second, other than Mara?
Second.
Okay.
So can we read it then?
Tom, do you want to? All right.
Go ahead, read it.
Okay.
So is there any other discussion that anyone wanted to bring up?
Do you want discussion?
I'm okay.
Okay. I can do it if you want.
I'll do it.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve an expenditure up to $35,000 to install the sculpture entitled History of Suspended Time by Gonzalo Lebrija on the Art Park H2 site, subject to an agreement between the city and the Palm Springs Art Museum.
That works.
Second.
You have a real.
Should we roll
here.
call? Yeah, roll call.
And
Oh, do we have to do a
Commissioner Pritchard,
voice thing because of abstentions, or?
We could do a.
Just
vote.
no, I'm
Why don't you-
abstaining. Okay.
Okay.
Well, we had the first, is that correct? By Commissioner Yanni, second by Commissioner Pritchard. If the commission wishes, I'll do a roll call
Yeah,
vote.
why don't we do it
Okay.
just so that it's clear?
Vice Chair Merrigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Pritchard,
Yes.
Commissioner Gladstone,
Abstain.
Commissioner Yanni,
Yes.
Chair Sheffer.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. And I will report, hopefully at the next meeting, that it's all settled. I figure if we get everyone in the same room, it's better than going back and forth about, how much weight it will support and how we're going to do it. And, and the museum has a lot of work to do first just to get it here. So
When is the meeting?
Tuesday,
Tuesday?
3 o'clock. If anyone would like to come, we can send that out.
Are we
so-
allowed to, I mean,
Yeah, the
does
idea.
it violate, if like three of us show up, does it turn into a
That's
meeting?
a good idea because it's not noticed as a meeting. So maybe if one other person wants to come.
I nominate Tracy.
Oh, I'd love to go if I can. I'll look at my calendar.
Okay. If there's just two of us, we're okay. Okay, the second item is to approve up to $5,000 for repairs or cleaning of artwork, such as murals or benches, by the original artist, time and materials to be invoiced when work is complete. The background to this is, first, as you know, some of the benches that were painted by Tyler Knight were inadvertently damaged. And then there's some sort of graffiti currently on them. And in each case, while he was still painting the benches, we added the time that he needed to fix them. But now that they're finished and his contract is done, he needs to go back and clean up one of the benches. I also had a message from Sofia Enriquez saying that she had noticed that someone had stamped some things on her mural, and would it be all right if she went and fixed it? She just wanted to make sure she wouldn't get arrested for, tampering with the mural. And it occurred to me that this could happen, randomly, and it doesn't require a contract with each person to do it. I think we just need them to submit a bill for what it took to repair something on their own piece.
Isn't the Sophia piece the museum's?
Like, can it just be the murals that we've paid for? Shouldn't be like this in the ordinance, the people who pay for the mural are supposed to take care of it.
That's true, and hers, that was sort of a joint project, though, because it's on a city wall.
But I mean, didn't the museum, wasn't it through the education
They
department?
did,
or
and
something?
the kids did it.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, this is a question of, probably $100.
I have a question
or something.
about
Yeah.
this proposal. So is this $5,000 a year is it per year? Is it per project? Is
No,
it for
it's-
projects that we commission? It's
It's,
not specific enough.
We can be more specific about which things it covers, but I thought we should just allocate some money so that, again, we don't have to write a whole contract for someone to come back and paint one bench because they had a contract to do them.
Is this not already sort of in our proposed annual budget for maintenance of artworks?
Not specifically. For example, we have been asked several times by the facilities department if we are going to be responsible for maintaining things like the benches. Because when they do it, they power wash it. So we said, yes, we would do it. But we don't have any way to, for example, pay Tyson for 2 hours of work and a can of paint. If we have this fund, he can submit an invoice up to $1,000, right, for something that we.
Yeah.
So we can certainly make some rules about what it covers. But I think if we just say that we now have a maintenance fund, for example, there's nothing in our budget that says maintenance per se.
So we have the agreement with Art Collective to do maintenance and repairs on the list of pieces that they have proposed on. They're available to do more, but I don't know how quickly they would get to it, given that they're going down their list of some 30 art pieces to do work on. So in this case, it would be, I believe as worded, by the artist, so that being one of the difference, so that would be one of the differences. And also, as you're discussing here, Public Art Commission paid for pieces is, I believe, up for discussion. Amount, time frame, et cetera, all up for discussion, so.
Thank you.
So it's
Can I-
really like a
Actually,
restoration fund,
we
right?
do have a budget item for, but
For maintenance.
for maintenance, but it's very nonspecific. So far this year, well, the money for the art collective has come out of that, and Delos Von Earl's Jungle Red was run over again, and he offered to fix it, and we've paid him. So I guess actually we're fine for now, because there was $45,000, and we've encumbered 30. I think we don't have to, I think we can make this sort of a sense of the meeting, that we would like to take care of these small ones within our maintenance
I
fund.
support the idea of this, but I do have to say, in the spirit of street art and public art, I think it's pretty normal for murals to get tagged. And I mean, it's kind of like the life of a street mural is that it starts, there start being traces of other artists who exist on it. And in that spirit, and also just sort of considering that this is potentially could just go on forever, is that I think we should schedule maybe, say there are just two times or 3 times a year, or, in advance of season or something like that, where these sort of corrections can be made, because I just, for these reasons, I think between the costs and then also just in the spirit of the kind of publicness of these projects, it's going to be an impossible task. So.
Well, yeah, and just a couple of comments. I think specifically this issue is coming up because of the test pilot project for the bench project, because it was something that is a test pilot project. So at the moment, it's what's sort of incurring the most damage. Part of which is sort of city responsible for it. So, and that wasn't factored into sort of that aspect of the budget when working on the test pilot project. But the current murals that we've done and are doing, like Ryan Cabell's mural has a maintenance budget in that he's responsible for, as will Gabby's mural and Ann Faith Nichols' mural. If we move forward with both of those, in their budget is money allotted for them to maintain the mural while it exists. So I think we probably don't need to have
To do
an
it
amount
separately.
suspended. It's just to be an as-needed case, especially with the test pilot project, because that's what it is. And if something comes up, we have to fix it, we fix it.
And I think as long as we can do it, under $1,000, it can be an invoice, because we do have a maintenance budget, so that would be fine. As far as the murals that are coming, do we put a period of time for how long they're responsible for it, or?
Right, that's maybe 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years is the ordinance.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
Yes.
Can I
We'll
ask
take that
a
up.
question about the graffiti? Does, in LA, there's an app that they have for graffiti removal. Does the city have a graffiti
We
removal
have,
program?
yes, we
do.
We pay a company $70,000 a year to wipe out graffiti wherever they see it. Unfortunately, some of it was our graffiti that, no, I mean, we're having trouble communicating that this is
Good graffiti
what's
and
art
bad
and not,
graffiti,
right? I know. So, yeah.
So are we-
would
are
they
we
be
just-
under
So we're gonna-
contract to clean up benches?
Right, so we can do the couple of the
Yes.
ones that we act, like the benches were our project, and,
The confusion has been going in and, say, blasting the benches and, when it needs to be treated a little differently.
Yeah, because, it was painted with wasn't it sealed with the
Yes,
anti-graffiti? Because then
anti-graffiti.
they should just be able to wash it
Right.
off.
The
not
trouble
have
is
to
if
power
we let
wash
the
it.
city do it, they got a little carried away and they washed off the paint, so. We're
But
just,
it's a outsourced company.
no, the city did it themselves, just to be helpful.
Oh.
Because it was regular cleaning, it wasn't anti-graffiti.
Yeah, I'm
Right.
saying if
Right.
we outsource it, then they should be able to.
But I don't think that we
Clean with
should
more
let someone
delicacy.
else do it. I mean, they did actually paint over or spray over the graffiti that we did on the Virgin Hotel site the first round. So
Oh, so they're not cleaning it, they're
they're
not cleaning it off,
Right.
they're painting over.
over it, because they thought the whole thing was graffiti, which it was, but
So are we coming to the conclusion then that we do not need to?
we don't need to do a special, we do have a
this. Okay,
maintenance
thank you.
fund. And I think we should try to either include it in contracts for artists or have the ability to just have them do a quick touch-up or something if that's what happened. And hopefully, no more of it will be inflicted by the city, so.
So I know that we're on action items, but since we are talking about murals, can we have another discussion about some of the murals that have been approved by the city but are on private property that are damaged and need repair work? Or do you want to save that conversation?
I think it's sort of, can be part of this whole discussion. So let's just do,
Processes,
the
okay.
last action item is,
Our meetings.
yes, well, it's just such a popular time slot, and that the city council has moved their meetings to the first and third Thursdays. So we could move to the third Wednesdays, which was their slot. Does that affect anyone's?
Thursdays are really hard. So.
So Wednesday's
I
good.
welcome this is.
Yeah.
Oh, good, okay.
Well, we never get to go to the things at the museum unless we arrive late and we like
That's
run
true.
over there or have the meeting over there. And,
Good point.
yeah.
Okay,
So
so
Wednesday at 4 is third, what is
the
it, second or
third.
third?
Third, right?
Wednesdays are personally, for me, a little bit challenging, and I would need to be leaving here at about 5:20. So I would not be able to.
Do we
We
want
have
to,
speedy
we can
meetings. Yeah.
start at 3 if we want. I mean,
Well,
this,
And currently for me, I work on Wednesdays, so my schedule at work has been such that I always had Thursday off because that was meeting day. So I would have to rework my schedule at work to make Wednesdays work.
I think this doesn't start right till January.
On Tuesdays.
That's correct, in January.
Well, currently.
Is the room available on Tuesdays, or is that?
I can look into Tuesdays. There are some other commissions that meet at those times, but
Or the city council meets the first and third Thursdays?
sorry, it's looking like it's the second and fourth Thursdays.
Okay,
Who's that?
the city council.
Oh,
Yeah.
second and fourth.
Can we look
So-
into Tuesday and Wednesdays at either 3 or 4 o'clock and see what's available, if this room is
Yes.
available?
Yeah. There's the library, somebody we overlapped with one day, but I think it's not on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Do we have to move this room?
It's
Because of the recording, I think.
there's that, and also the other conference rooms are fairly small, so it's hard to have some guests. But I think that it's been good to meet at the museum once in a while, or the Desert Arts Center or something. We could keep doing that, just so that. But there's certainly no problem meeting earlier, as long as it's at a time where members of the public could come. And it's more important for the city council that they need to be.
Yeah, well, I can probably make a Tuesday or Wednesday work. It would just be changing my work schedule, which is somewhat
Okay,
flexible.
And it's not till January, right? Yeah, so we have a little time. So would our choice be
So can we
Wednesday,
vote
first
on
choice
it at the
Wednesday?
next meeting, or should,
Well, I
and
think we
find out, or-
should find out what's available.
Okay.
So our first choice would be Wednesday at 3:30,
Or Tuesday? Oh.
and second choice would be Tuesday
that
at
works.
3:30. Does that make? Okay.
This, and both third. Does anyone have issues with which week it is in the month? Second, third, whatever?
The best part about meeting on a Wednesday is that if we have something that's ready to go to the city council, they do their agendas on Thursday. So right now, we miss it by a day, and then, it's like 2 or 3 weeks till the next city council meeting, so that
So
helps.
Tuesday would be even better.
Until April, the first Wednesday, I have to be in Palm Desert by 5:30.
Okay, well, we're talking about the 3rd, right? The 3rd Wednesday. Okay, so do you have a schedule? Okay, so do we want to just
I'll make
give
a
our
motion.
preferences?
Do
Yeah.
we
Yeah,
have
when-
to vote on?
I don't know that we
don't
have
think
to
we have to
because
vote.
we don't
Okay, we'll just-
have an answer, but, so our choices are the 3rd Wednesday, if we can start at 3:30, and could be the 2nd Tuesday, right?
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Now, the rest of the meeting, and we have to try to be out because there's something at Digicom, which I think some people might be going to, yes. Catch up on the projects we're doing and talk about what we've got coming. And Sarah, why don't you come and join us, because we're delegating a lot of this to her, so. Okay, you want to start with the
Sure,
Gerald Clark?
happy to update on the Gerald Clark Road Signs Project. So I think most of you have seen the updated proposal and site location list. Gerald and I visited all the parks in the city of Palm Springs and identified 5 of them that we thought were really great for some of the road signs, and then 2 additional locations that would be alternatives if for some reason the other locations didn't work out. Gerald has all the designs. I'll be asking him to send me the final design images, and all of the commissioners have been really helpful in each reaching out to different community neighborhood groups to share with them advance notice of the project. And already, I think you attended one of those meetings. So we're getting there, but we'll be sure to going to all of those in December. And then we're also in conversations with the Parks and Rec Department so they can assist us in the installation. And so they're just very clear about the locations of these signs and the project. And it appears that there aren't any red flags going up with the proposed locations, so that's a great relief. And I think the other things that I would love this commission and Sarah to think about are just how we can best promote the project. If you have any ideas about cross promoting with the museum's exhibition of Gerald's work, as well as potentially with High Desert Test Sites, which he's also participating in. So I think we can discuss this more like offline about some ways that we can really promote that. Or if we would like, Gerald himself had suggested that it might be interesting and kind of wonderful to have some bird singing to celebrate those installations, those sign installations, particularly at sites where there are already sort of stages built in, such as at the Palm Springs, the Welcome Center has a little stage, and some of the signs that he's proposed would be around there. Not a stage, but they're kind of like poured concrete seating and steps. And finally, the idea of maybe making one of our Thursday collaborative conversations with the collaborative events with the museum to be something that celebrates that public project. So these are just all things to think about that I would be happy to continue conversations with Gerald directly, or if, I can connect you if you have some ideas, so.
And Madalena said that she would like to come to the meeting in December and talk about all the social media and how we're doing and what kind of response we're getting, and this would be a good time to lay out a plan for this.
And Mara, the installation of the signs would be in January?
That's the goal, yeah, so.
When does his retrospective open?
Mid-January, January 17th. January 17th? 18th, thank you. January 18th.
So,
Yeah.
and we ought to try to have a map again of, just so people would know where they all are.
I have actually made an interactive Google map already of it. I don't know how to,
Make it
make that, maybe Sarah can make that into something like more beautiful, but it actually is very, very specific with the exact locations like that we would recommend, next to the building or whatever. So I actually already have that
Great.
and can share it.
Add some content to it.
You could kind of lock it. Yeah, because
Yeah.
you can zoom in and you can really sort of see where it is. Because they're small signs. I mean, they're just street
Right.
signs. So,
That'd be cool, we could just get a cool URL for it and
Are we having any sort of signage?
oh, yes.
That says
So-
what the project
So
is.
Gerald and I also discussed, he will be making smaller plaques, like little, maybe white with a little, like sort of the informational kind of plaques underneath it that would explain what the project is. This is a work by Gerald Clark Jr. and offers some kind of context
Mm-hmm.
for the work. We're still working on what that language would be, but yes, it would be just sort of placed underneath the yellow
Great.
sign.
And there was a big article in Palm Springs Life, so it's all, I think, going to come together.
Can I just add on? So I think the neighborhoods are a great resource for community, like events like you're talking about, because I did go to one of the meetings and explain to them the project in the wellness park, and, they were just really happy to know about it and be included and to understand the piece and stuff. So I think following up and saying, let's do something, I think a lot of the neighborhood, my sense is that they would take the lead and maybe kind of push an event or something like that.
Yeah, in that particular instance, even, maybe connecting with the Y or the after-school
right.
clubs that are
Because of
there
wellness.
to coincide, because I'm certain that, some of the students sort of are in that area, so we can talk
Yeah,
more about
we
that.
could do a little dedication, park by park, sort of. And
I'm
the-
really excited about the project.
I think it's great. The next meeting of the Parks and Rec Commission, which doesn't have to approve this, but I think it'd be nice to tell them, is on Monday, the 25th at 4 p.m. Monday, the 25th, right?
I will not be available to go to that, which is unfortunate. Maybe can someone else go and attend, or can I send a report, or what do you think the best?
Or we can do it at their January meeting. I mean, it's just really and maybe that's even better, because we'll know exactly
Yeah,
where everything's
maybe that's
going.
better.
And invite them to whatever sort of dedication there is. They're I guess that's the fourth Monday. That sound right?
The 25th.
Yeah,
That's Thanksgiving.
right. But they
It
seem to
may
be having it.
change,
Oh, it
'cause
might
we're all
change because of,
changing. Right.
Okay, okay, so
Keep an eye on
we'll,
it.
oh, good. It'll just confuse everyone.
They'll have one December.
Yeah.
Yes, probably, right? Well, but we don't, okay. Fourth,
what's that, what happens?
it probably gets close to Christmas then. That's,
Yeah, they know how to pick a date.
okay. All right, so a quick update on the airport might mention, and we also might decide if we want to do something more with the installation. You want to just
Well-
report that we got it there?
Yeah, it's great that we've got it there. I think probably you should report it because you've actually seen it.
Yes, I happen to be flying back.
I couldn't get security clearance. so,
Really?
yeah.
No one from the airport commission? You
No,
can't do
I
it?
reached out to the person in charge of that who said he would give me clearance after it was installed. And I said, yes, but it's a project by the Palm Springs Arts Commission, and we really should be a part of seeing it installed and improving that it has been installed. And no response.
Well, they did do a very nice video.
Yes, I've watched the video.
Yes. But it's, if you remember, it was once one big installation with all the colored balls. And that ran into trouble with whether it would block traffic and also whether it would be subject to too many people touching it and possibly breaking it. So it evolved into four separate parts to it that are installed in what's called the regional terminal, which is the one if you go in and you go all the way to the right. And there's sort of an overhang, and these hang down from it. And it took a crane and a lift and everything else to get them up there. But what they're working on is some signage that basically has a picture of it, and it encourages people to look up. If you know they're there, you see them, and it's cool. When you walk in, there's 4 of them, and they're right over lights so that they show up. I mean, but I think we just have to sort of announce them a little bit more. It's not worth probably trying to actually have a dedication, but I think we could maybe get a site visit. I mean, there's a limit to how many people we could probably get through security. The other alternative is if anybody's up for going to the next airport commission meeting, which meets at 8 a.m. on the first Wednesday or something, we could, officially give it to them or whatever. Just, we can also, Madalena's posted some things, and we could get something in the paper if we wanted. But they were very enthusiastic at the airport, except that then they realized that they were about to start renovations of the ticketing area. And in the upper terminal, the Sonny Bono terminal, there's a fountain with seating around it and 4 trees, which apparently have broken through the roof. So they can't do any more art till they trim the trees. So these are things about public art that you don't think
Well,
of.
Congrats on getting it done.
Yeah.
Someday I'll see it, I
Yeah.
swear.
I mean,
Yes.
certainly it's one of the projects that morphed into various forms. And it's interesting for us working with the Airport Commission because we see how they're a little bit more limited and restrictive than we would like them to be in public art. So, I mean, it's great that we were able to showcase art by local artists and do an installation at the airport. Is it 100% ideal? No, but it's great that it was done. And
Well, and I think we need to celebrate that. And
Yeah.
then when they get lots of positive publicity,
Yeah.
I think they'll be.
And certainly the artists, both of them, I went to the Backstreet Studio Art Walk last Wednesday, and Linda Maxon has opened her new gallery in Rancho Mirage. I went to her opening, and they're both so thrilled and excited that we were able to do this for them that they thank us wholeheartedly.
Okay. All right. So why don't you just sort of finish up with where we are on the 2 murals, and then you'll be off the hook for a while, and somebody else.
All right, well, it's very easy because the 2 murals we're talking about, Gabby Vasquez, excuse me, which is Visiting Mirage, and then Ann Faith Nichols, Transplant. So we've been sort of around and about with the actual locations. We have voted on and approved the budget for Gabby Vasquez. It was originally going to be on the,
West Elm, I think.
no, it was going to be on the south-facing wall
right.
of Johannes Restaurant
Right.
on Arenas.
Yes.
The merchants
Sure.
had said yes to it and then changed their minds. So through Anne connecting us with the cultural center, they're very enthusiastic about it being on the north wall of the cultural center, which is shown in the mock-up that Gabby did for the mural.
We should mention that the cultural center is going to take off, those are not really doors, they're just
Yeah, they're just faux
decorative.
pediment
And
things
they're going to
with,
take them off.
yeah, with falling apart shutters in the
And
center.
So it will just be a clear wall. And it's the wall facing the farmer's market and now the vintage
And the
market
vintage
is there.
markets, yeah.
So every Saturday, there's hundreds of people there, so.
Yeah, so a very good visibility. Gabby is super enthusiastic and excited about doing it on that wall. And then the other one is Transplant by Ann Faith Nichols. And the proposal that you'll see is on the same north wall, but the wall indents. So there's a separate area that sort of stands apart from where Gabby's mural would be. But a couple of issues need to be brought up to speed with, specifically when we voted on her budget, because she's added what was the original budget, which we took apart and
Right.
adjusted down. So I couldn't find that in my notes, so I would need to have record of what the exact amount that we budgeted for. Because when I met with Ann Nichols on site a few days ago, just because of the height of it, we were originally talking about her mural being done at the airport. So the budget was done such that at the airport, it was only about a 10-foot wall, so it would be easily done. It's on the inside and would be easily accessed with just a basic ladder. Here, she would need to have some scaffolding. So the only adjustment I would want to do, as I mentioned to her, when we looked at the site and realized that she would need to do any sort of scaffolding or scissor lift, that we would just do an add-on for that amount to her original budget that we approved. So on this mock-up, she's added $300 to $600 for scaffolding.
You know what? In these minutes we have,
It was
page
shelved,
3, it was, we
not
tabled it.
discussed it.
Right, see, that's where I think I quizzed Jay on this earlier, that did we actually approve a specific budget for her?
We didn't.
In the summer, maybe?
Because it's,
We talked about there being a consistent fee, right?
because I remember us discussing the budget and lowering it from this amount, but I don't remember, I don't have the notes at any meetings to know if we actually,
It said what we were going to propose was $7,500, based on the artist fee being about the same as Gabby's. So if you look at Ann's proposal, the difference is she has a $7,000 artist fee.
right, which I think we're going to drop down to 5 maybe, or less.
We were going to,
We didn't talk, we didn't.
But at a previous discussion, that's why I've lost track of,
I know. It's
What's
because
happened with the
we
budget?
had so much trouble finding a wall,
Yeah.
that we kept postponing it.
Was this the one that was originally thought to go in West Elm?
Yes.
that was a possibility, but yes. Michael Broad is not a fan of the mural, so.
So actually, we haven't approved this, number one, and number two, if we approve it for less than her budget, I think we have to tell her. She may or may not agree to do it
Right.
for that amount.
Do we have any easy way of finding our minutes to find out when we last discussed this and what a specific amount we?
Well, it's September 12th, and it's in the minutes. And we don't have
But
minutes.
it might have
from-
been discussed in July, I don't know.
Well,
Because September it was just tabled, so there was no,
right.
because I looked earlier, there was no mention of this.
Here, I have, what we did was, in September, the action item says, approval of funding to commission artwork from the 3030 exhibit, Commissioner's Choice Awards, for a total amount not to exceed $21,000. And it was $7,500 for Anne, $6,500 for Gabby, $3,500 for John Morse, the clothesline is Color Spectrum, $3,500 for Jeff Pick for the fault line, and those together came to $21,000. So we ended up approving Gabby and John North and Jeff Pick.
I
So
think
I'm
we're
not quite
reaching
sure.
a point with these projects that I think we need to be very, have a clearer sense of our fee structure. Maybe, I don't know if that's based on the scale of the project, the amount of labor involved, but, you know, there are a number of like tools that are available, such as like the wage fee calculator and things like that, that can help us with that. But, you know, like for example, what's the fee for Gabby's mural? Or what's her artist fee?
It's like $3,000.
Yeah, so I just think we have to, this fee seems a little high to me based on the scale of the project, and based on my memory of how much we've paid other mural artists for very large-scale work.
Right,
So,
right.
so I just think we need to think about that and maybe
Part of the problem is
have that clarity.
I had forgotten until I saw the minutes that we didn't actually vote on that. We had 4, and we did talk about, the reason we reduced the amount that we were going to vote on was because we were going to reduce the artist fee to be in line with Gabby's. But if we haven't actually approved this,
We haven't.
what we have is, we've gotten the planning department to notice that we would have a public hearing on these 2 murals. It has to be 10 days' notice. So we set up, it's Tuesday the 26th, which again is Thanksgiving week, but to meet at the Cultural Center and with any member of the public who gets this notice and wants to come. And then we can vote it. So I think that unfortunately, Commissioner Pritchard's going to need to go back to Ann Faith and tell her that when we realized that what we had on our agenda was $7,500.
So, looking back at those minutes from September, it talks about the installation of the clothesline of Color Spectrum, that it was supposed to go up before Pride Weekend?
Right,
Did
which
it
that's
go up?
the next part of the report, right?
So it never
about
went
that.
up, right?
It never went up.
Not yet.
His name is John Morse, too.
Oh, right, it is.
So sorry, can we just finish up on the next steps for these 2 mural
Yes.
projects?
Well, I think that we're trying to finish as many of those 30 by 30 projects as we can, but I think that we need to really make final decisions on them, because there are 2 or 3 that we're not going to be able to do.
I'm just confused. So we did not vote on them? We just discussed it?
We
Is that-
discussed, we voted on everything but Ann Faith's
Because
mural.
of the location?
Because, and the
And the
cost.
cost. Yeah, so I think it's, at this point, my recommendation was that we would move forward with Gabby Vasquez mural. And then we would have to, I would readdress with Ann Faith Nichols, both her budget and the location, because she has stated to me on a few occasions that it was under her distinct impression that when she entered the contest, the 30 by 30,
Which was
that
the
anything that
contest.
was selected would be placed in the downtown arts
I mean,
district.
it's just, we just have to go by the meeting minutes. So I think we need to refer just to this. And that's, we're doing our very best to get this work up, so
Right.
you can send our
And
apologies.
The thing is, we
Um,
can, if you could come to an agreement with her, if she's willing to do it, we can officially vote on it on that Thursday. That is I mean, if it was a mural that came in from someplace else, we would vote, we would have a public hearing and then immediately vote to send it to the city council or not. So both murals are listed on the public hearing.
Oh,
So
okay.
if we get to that point and there is no second mural, that's fine. But if we can
Okay.
work it out, because nowhere have we agreed on a budget for it.
All right.
But why does it have to go to planning? I thought with
They
the
just have to
Public-
send out the
public
notice.
notice.
We have to have at least one meeting where we discuss a mural that has had 10 days' notice, so that if anyone wanted to come to it, they could. But it can be any time before we actually approve the mural.
So can we talk about the piece now, as we're looking at now? Because I like the piece, but I don't think it should go right next to the other piece. It just seems really busy to me. I mean, the other piece isn't in the picture here, but it's like, why would you put two murals in the exact same spot when there's like so many, like,
There are other walls too there.
even there, yeah, but to me, putting them on the same side doesn't make any sense.
I actually don't mind. I feel like they're so different because Anne's is so figurative. The other one is a landscape. I actually think they're kind of a nice complement,
Yeah.
and they're very different scale. I mean, if we were to have, say, a smaller Ryan Campbell next to the Gabby's work, it would, that wouldn't
Yeah.
make sense. But these two feel just so different that I actually think it can work, especially because when you're usually in that space, you're in your car or you're walking around and you're very kind of close to the wall. So I don't mind it. I don't mind the idea. But do the artists know that their
Yes.
work would be next to?
Yes,
Okay.
they do.
Okay.
I mean, because when I go to the farmer's market, I mean, that's like, I feel like most people are going to see it when and then the farmer's market booths are all lined up in front of there, right? So they're kinda
They're out
blocking it.
from the.
In front of the sidewalk, right?
Right. I mean, they're away from the building.
But I mean, I
because-
don't think you can get up to the building, right? When the farmer's.
Oh, in the market, oh,
the
absolutely you
market-
can.
You can?
Yeah, and their little cafe is open,
Mhm.
Yeah.
that you get to right there.
Yeah, because it's actually a fairly wide expanse of concrete. That towards the end, there's a ramp that goes down for
Mhm.
some reason. But in front of where Gabby's will be, especially that sidewalk is probably at least 6 feet wide, maybe even wider.
I think we have to do it at this public hearing, and either we have everybody's agreed, or, or that's it, or we won't go forward. I mean, we have to have the artist agree, and,
So can we have a public meeting before we approve going forward with a mural though?
we are having a public meeting on Tuesday, the 26th, at 4 p.m., which will be a 15-minute meeting about this. And if we approve it, then we
Are there
can,
going to be enough people here for that?
I hope so.
So wait, this is a special meeting of the Public Arts Commission?
It's a public hearing,
Oh,
which is a meeting.
so wait,
And-
did we know about that?
No, we just did it in order to do it,
For the murals?
yeah, because planning had to send out the notices yesterday if we were going to do one.
Oh, I see,
So, if we don't have a quorum, then we can't vote on it. But we will have had the public hearing, so that if anyone, there's not a lot of neighbors, there's, COD's construction site. but there's some houses nearby, so.
Russell, I also think it's important to emphasize that we are very much in support of these projects. We just need to approve them in the right process. And then the other thing is, when we agree to do a project, we have to agree on terms. And so that's another thing that has to happen. And so
Well,
it's
I-
not, I guess this is just to say, we're supportive of these projects. And I mean, I think that should be our approach in just talking that we just need to do it the right way.
Well, and we tried to be very clear that the commissioner's choices were projects that we were going to try to do. Because these were ones that people thought were really worthwhile and should be tried. And I must say that this is the only artist who's pushed back quite a bit about where and when, and, it's always sort of, you promised to do this, and we tried to make it clear that we're doing the best we can, and when we got budgets from some of the ones that we had liked, some of them were $180,000, and it's, so perhaps it's time to, like, at the end of this year, we're going to revitalize the ability for artists to register that they want to do things, and if we have an RFP to put it online, it may be time to close out the other one and say, these are, if we haven't been able to do these projects, we're not going to do them. I think we probably have to communicate with there were 7.
It's been a very short period of time.
Yeah. And each of these things are fairly complicated.
It's not,
So perhaps we should just tell them that we need to be
I don't
patient.
think we should be banging ourselves on the head.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
We've gotten,
closed all summer,
Right.
and now it's the first week
Yeah.
of November, so.
well, yeah, and 2 of the other main projects, Bijan, who did the We Are One proposal, and Richard Becker, who did the Buoyant, which is the inner tube baby. So I've had ongoing communication with them over the summertime. That's where we got several different variations of their proposals. So they know, especially Bijan, realizes that his is a large installation. That's not going to happen next month or even next year. It's just something that we will consider for some specific spot. The Richard Becker is something, perhaps in the next meeting, we put on a discussion, I would like to address doing with him, excuse me, one of his small childlike figures, because it's within a reasonable amount of money. I can't remember specifically what the number was, but he knows too that it's an ongoing process. So
okay.
all of these artists are sort of aware that we're working on them, so we're doing our due diligence.
Yeah. Well, maybe we still should, perhaps I'll send a note, which I can do through the call for entries, and just, touching base, sort of, that we are working on these. And I think we've gotten a number of things done, really a lot of things done, considering the steps that each one has to go through. So I think for Anne Faith, just to find out, by the 25th, 26th, if this is what she wants to do. And then we can put it on the agenda and vote on it.
Right. So, but for that date, are there going to be enough commissioners available for the meeting to actually do that?
Are you here at this, who is available?
Tuesday, the 26th.
It's just before Thanksgiving. I have all my children here, but I will come over, and this should take 20 minutes. It's just really, we have to do it.
What time?
4?
Yeah.
I'll ask the cultural center to serve us hot chocolate or something.
So and Alfonso would probably be available. So
I
if
think
there
so.
are-
When he said he couldn't come today, I sent him a note and asked him about that. So we need 4 people. And a sense from the people who can't be there if they're okay with it, because there's no point in,
I guess my question is, so if we have this public thing, and so we're just getting feedback, that doesn't mean we're committing to the project, right? We're just getting public feedback?
we can vote on it that day if we have a quorum and if we want to go forward. But we have to do it at a meeting that has been,
Right.
Notice.
Publicly noticed, okay.
Right, but we're not obligated to proceed with it if we, as the commission, decide that, no, we're going to do Ann Face Nichols.
Or just put it off or something,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Put it- okay.
right.
Yeah, it's really just the,
But we've given ourselves
Notification.
this little window to do one or both of them, because otherwise it would be December, and then it would go to the city council in January. It
Right.
just adds up if you don't.
yeah.
Well,
to-
it's smart to use the money to do both at the same, notice both at the same time.
Right.
And, so it's the same address.
Well, it's the cultural center is supportive of it, so it's just a simple matter of getting their letter of easement and it's
Right.
done.
Right,
So,
which is good, because Russell has been talking to people on Arenas, and Michael Braun, who's very supportive, but maybe not here, maybe not there. So, it's been a lot of legwork to try to figure it out. But the Cultural Center would like to have more. And I think they'd be very amenable to maybe leaving something up for a couple of years and then, doing something different.
But,
Okay.
yeah,
So
and
can we
certainly
move-
timeline
Yes.
for them, within a couple of years, the College of the Desert will be finished, and then,
Well,
Right.
don't hold your breath.
They're hoping to do a lot of programs with them. Okay,
Long
Can I
off the
ask one
commission.
question? Can we move number 4 to the next meeting? D4?
definitely.
Mhm.
Okay.
And what we need to do now is, I know you and Sarah have a whole list of things.
So we're going to motor this.
Okay, let me just, so maintenance project, we've met with Arlene, she's on track, they have their contract signed. So basically, the program that we outlined in the meeting, I think last month, is moving forward. It's just a few weeks behind its original schedule. She gave us a revised schedule, which I forgot. But they will be beginning soon, and so our process is, they'll just kind of go through the works, and we're gonna just kind of meet periodically and keep you posted on the pieces and things like that. And the plan is basically to do the sort of cleaning first, and then as works that they come across need more attention, they'll be sort of put into a different bat, more like conservation. And then we'll just kind of keep going as we go through. So anyway, it's been a long time getting the contract, but they're ready to go.
Can I ask one quick question?
Sure.
Would they if they see a piece that they think is poorly cited, would they
Yes.
do a recommendation to move?
Yes, we asked them
Yeah,
to do
yeah.
that. And we can give them the list of possible sites that we have, sort of sitting around. But what I'm hoping is, having responded to a 47-page RFP with a 60-page proposal, that the city will consider that they are experts in this field. And so if they recommend something, that we won't have quite as much of a time selling the idea. So,
Oh, that's great.
yeah.
Okay, so we're moving on to D3
Awesome.
upcoming.
Okay. Talk fast.
So we're going to motor this. I just wanted to give you a quick overview, and then I'm going to hand it off to Sarah. So, we are proposing doing an artist registry. So Sarah can kind of go through it. It might be something we need to vote on. But we've done preliminary research on it, which is a little bit ongoing because talking to Madalena about it on the website. So that is one thing. And then there are a number of different registries here, and the ones, I thought the Laguna Beach one was really interesting. The Palm Desert one stands out, not for any design or anything other than you have to be juried in to be on the artist's registry. So it's something we should think about. And then we talked to Russell about the airport, and we talked to Anne about it also, of doing some temporary art there. So that will depend on their construction schedule.
And I'm trying to find out what they're doing. I can't believe they would tear up the airport during the season, but
Yeah, that's why I was hoping, like, it would be temporary. I was hoping they wouldn't be tearing up the airport in season, and so that's something we could do. So then,
So
we've
this is
been,
for the map? Is that-
yeah, the map has to move, but it would also be for a lot of the pieces from the 30 by 30 show are already framed renderings. So we could have a pop-up 30 by 30, the pieces that were Commissioner's Choice, have them at the airport with, signage of what the show is about, and have it as a temporary show there. So even, you might not have seen the renderings, the framed renderings in the show, but we didn't show everything. So I think all of those pieces have a rendering of them of some sort that was framed and ready to go. So I thought it would be a way of keeping the projects in the ecosphere, while we're working on things. So they would be the pieces that we pulled out as Commissioner's Choice.
I don't think we should be installing those temporary proposals in the airport. I just, if we're not sure we're moving forward with them, I just don't think we should put them
Give
up in
them
public
anymore.
view.
I mean,
Sorry, I just think that was part of a project, a show that happened, and I know they're framed, but I just think having like maybe, our statement about public art,
I think
just a
that,
sort of general, like a nice, like attractive, like Public Arts Commission thing with the map and a QR code to scan, a map of all of our, sites or something. I just think this is also like a passageway, and having a lot of text, having work that you have to explain a lot is work in the museum, It just, I just think it would be more high impact to get our message across, also to just have this felt map and then like maybe
Yeah,
something more interactive.
We're just throwing it out there.
But
so
that's
And-
my feelings.
maybe eventually we'll have not a big map like the one that we used to have that was just hard to read. But something, at the information booth at the airport, maybe there'll be something. I just flew out of San Francisco, and there's a map to the art in the airport. It's like,
I mean, we can even think about, the student art, like the portraits. You can blow things up and mount them on foam board, and sort of high impact. Emphasize what we do in the community,
Yeah,
and
we-
really like singular projects that are easily digestible, I think would work best in this space.
We have enough material that we already created around the map to do an entire installation.
I
There
think that would
easily.
be.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
that
we
would
have
be
everything that
eye-catching,
we
too.
created. We have everything, yeah.
To ask, so you'll be installing this in a plexi, in a clear frame, or
Yeah.
we'll have a plexi cover?
Right.
Okay.
So that nobody can take the
Yeah,
felt.
yeah. Like to
So
protect.
these are all things to have everybody think about, so. The other thing, we've been talking to John Morse with his clothesline, and Jeff Pick, who Ann has mostly, I think, been talking to, about proposing doing the clothesline across part of the art pit, and to have an idea of having that up by February. So we've asked John to come back, he's doing a big commission at the moment, to come back this month, right? And he's going to give us a rendering and update his proposal for the size and the space.
The Walker Guest House has supposedly been sold and will be out of there after Modernism Week.
Yeah.
But I did also hear someone say that that sale had fallen through. But I think they're committed to moving it certainly after. It's being advertised for tours during Modernism Week.
Yeah.
So it would be after that.
And then the idea is to put Jev Pick's piece in the pit after the guest house leaves.
So
So those are those two proposals. What else was on here?
let's go back to, some of the other proposals are a little further down the line, but maybe we could talk just a little bit more about the artist registry and how we're going to try to respond to the artists who want to do something and somehow make it possible for them to at least indicate their interest so that when there is an RFP, let's say the idea comes together for an AIDS memorial, we would have a way to describe sort of what the intent is and get people to make proposals. So does anyone have any either problems with that notion or suggestions for how it might work better? I know you've done RFPs and things.
I don't know. I just look at this and I just think it's not a good use of our resources. Artist registries are self-selecting. The people who choose to add their work to these registries are self-selecting. So I don't know what exactly that means, but it's usually a certain kind of artist, a certain, someone who really self-promotes and, has a kind of verve about them. And I think, I don't know, we operate on such a lean budget that I just can't imagine us managing like a large-scale database. I mean, all these other examples are of cities that have significantly more resources than we do. And so that's one thought. And then the other is that, I think, that said, I see that the one benefit is that it is a space wherein artists who are interested in communicating with the city and with the commission are able to do so in a sort of open way and sort of solves a kind of problem that we've been having.
Of people
And then it
wondering
allows
why they-
us to sort of annually, we can like go through and sort of check it out and see if any of the artists or projects do particularly, work with us. But, if they're not vetted, if they're not, if they're just simply sort of uploading portfolios, it just becomes this sort of space information glug that won't actually be that helpful for us.
Right.
But I
think
do
it-
see the benefit
it
of the
does-
communication.
It's a way of saying
issue.
that we, even with the benches, some of the I got all these comments on Facebook. Why are they such bright colors? Why aren't they mid-century colors? And why didn't I get to do one? They sort of go back and forth with, and we kept saying it's just a pilot project. But I think that what we need to do is roll this into the other question that we were going to talk about, and it really needs to be done in like a study session or just a group of people together. But we have people who come with proposals for sculptures they want to give the city or they want to do for the city, and we have a commitment to sort of reach out to the neighborhoods and the parks. The question is, how can we put those two things together? In other words, how can we generate ideas from the various neighborhoods and the parks about what they would like to see, and then also have some ideas of projects that people want to do? But I
just
think it takes more,
as someone who works at an institution that I think it is an arts institution, we are constantly fielding proposals from all sorts of people, gifts of sculptures, gifts of proposals. And I think this small commission, again, operating on a super small budget, annual budget, I just think us opening the door to just all ideas is not a great idea and not a good use of our resources. I do think, doing an annual call for a general project that may or may not be realized, like, public art in a park, make a bench, paint the electrical box, or, something that's, or, annual call for mural at this site, something like that. I think having specific guidelines so we know what we're getting into is better than just doing a public open call. I just really don't think we have the capacity to manage that information. And then it potentially leads to more sort of disgruntled relationships with people in our community who might expect us to respond to all of these things. And to be good commissioners and good citizens and representatives of this commission, we would have to do that. I just think I don't know, I'm really kind of against this. But I'm definitely open to ideas about how we can build that communication in some way.
so I think
Well,
that's,
can I just, it kind of goes to that other piece that Tom just said. So I think that's something we really need to think about, is not necessarily, like, that we might not have the capacity to have people come to us at every meeting or so and say, I want to give you my sculpture, right? Because that also gets us into, we don't, that's nice, but, maybe that's not the direction we're going in, or we don't have
People
the time
mostly
or
give away
capacity.
sculptures because they're buying a new one or because they're moving out of their home. Unfortunately, I mean, at least that's like the bulk of probably what we'd be getting here, especially in this desert. So I don't think that's where we should be going with our resources and with the idea of installing more sculptures, Well, I'd love to do that, but
I think what we need is another study session. I mean, we need to just put this one thing on the agenda, and that is, what do we want to accomplish, and how can we involve people in a way that's, satisfying for everyone? Do you have a date for going to see 1PS? That's another way
I've
to.
been sick. Sarah went this morning.
Oh,
so
okay.
she can kind of update
How
everybody
did-
on kind of what they do there.
Yeah, they were, so I went this morning and they were just kind of recapping what they did for the parades and projects that are just happening in downtown and within the communities. But I didn't get up and, speak or anything. I just was an observer to see how they operate and all that.
But do you think that that's a way to sort of get some input
Bring
from the
ideas.
neighborhood groups?
Yeah, definitely. There's
Okay.
someone that represents every group, and they seem really open to different kind of projects and putting things on the table and discussing it. So
All right, well,
I thought it
then
was
I
a
think-
great option.
Why don't we, unless, I don't see that we have any projects that we need to vote on in December. Why don't we make that a study session, or, most of it? And let's try, maybe we can put some of these ideas down. I mean, one is people who come with art they want to give us. One is, how do we get like the parks and the neighborhoods to think about what they would like to do, and things that involve like kids working with artists and whatever. And then how do we sort of channel all the artists that want to do something into, an idea of what kinds of public art? Because I think that we've thrown a lot of things at the wall, literally, but there's much more awareness. But we've mostly been in that downtown area, and now the park's going to come, and the museum's going to do more things out in front of, and so I think it's time for us to see what the rest of the city is in need of. And I also hope not just moving some sculptures, but I think that there are some sculptures that have just been sitting there for too long. I mean, and perhaps they were gifts to begin with, who knows? But with Arlene and her crew being able to assess what we have, for example, most of the art at the airport belongs to the Art Museum, and it's been there for, 10 years or something? And they might like to refresh what people see as they come into the airport. And I know they'd like to have some signage that says, this came from the museum, come see the museum. So I think we can just sort of keep doing what we've been doing, but let's try to get it less random.
So will the study session then be about potential models for a CFP or something like that?
Right.
That's what I'd like.
And
Right.
I mean, I think we should spend the bulk of that. I'm actually a little bit wary of us also having a study session be about sites and locations and possibly moving sculpture.
No, I was just saying
Oh, okay.
that's what I'm
Okay.
hoping we'll get out of the maintenance report.
Okay, great.
Is
Great.
not just,
But that could be a subcommittee. So then the focus will be discussing, brainstorming different models to do an RFP that allows us to have communication with our public and also create a system for reviewing and commissioning work.
exactly.
So
And if
can we all do homework then in advance of that?
Yes, and especially if you can give
yeah.
us some that.
Yeah, sure.
I think that before we put anything in a park, I think that there need to be juries or committees or whatever that include some people from the neighborhood. I mean, we have to come up with sort of a process so that we don't go around trying to, put murals up. I think it was great for the first few, but we saw what happened at Arenas. They just weren't sure who was in charge and who could say yes, and they all want something to happen there, but
It's also important for us to also remove ourselves from the idea that art has to be this thing that's on a wall that's there for a period of time. I mean, for example, the city of LA just completed like a 2-week public art project in parks. It's called LA Currents Food or something. So then they commissioned, I think, 10 or 12 projects, installed at various parks that were really up for a short period of time, 2 weeks. 2-day install. They did some kind of like public activation at the site on a weekend or on an evening, depending what the project was. But the projects were meant to be ephemeral, disposable, like the kinds of projects that were made. I know an artist who
Edible.
used recycled cans that or just receptacles that she painted a certain color and then mounted on a temporary fence. So that whole thing just goes in the garbage afterwards. And so I think we need to think about different, if we're all committed to parks, which I think we are, but maybe we can think about different, artists work in so many different ways, and this would be, so I think besides bringing like RFP models, which are totally boring, let's bring models of like temporary public art things that
I
we
agree.
see.
But then we still have the issue of how do we pick the artists, right?
Right, but if we
we don't wanna keep
but if we
using the
see
same
projects that
people.
kind of work, like for example, I'm going to go back and sort of look back at that early call for that LA project that I saw. I only saw like 2 of them, but I'll just see, we can just start seeing how they modeled it. And again, they're operating with like a lot more funds and a whole staff of people who are able to select. But if we can kind of scale it down to be something more manageable, that could be, we could probably find a model that works.
Having public art night at the museum, we can have a week that's art in the parks. But I agree, I'd like to see more ephemeral things and just keep the interest and also the process. I mean, have artists working in a way that people can watch or participate or whatever.
And
So-
it's also reflective of like socially engaged art practices where people are really interested in are folding in that connection and conversation with the community in their work, so that we don't always have to be going to explain to everybody what's happening to describe the project, but rather the project itself is an act of communication. I mean, I think, you know, that would be great.
We should do lessons learned too with the call for entry and how all of that went last year and like what we'd want to change.
But I just want to add on, because I mostly agree with everything you said. And I do worry, because I like the idea of the artist registry, but then there is this like obligation, like you have to actually look through it, right? So I think I like the idea of the entry, you know, like having a project and have people submit to that. And then we can, like we did with the exhibition, like really, you know, get some new faces and some, you know, people
Right.
that were not the same people
Right.
that we seem to get all the time.
And I think
So
we've.
maybe that, like, I like it to be tied to like a
Right.
project
Right.
instead of having like a
That,
generic.
and that was like a huge spectrum of people.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
But
so
we-
I thought that worked really well.
And we've learned from that simply that, you know, we have to make it clear that, you know, what the scale of the project is going to be. And so, you know, and maybe even Palm Desert, which I'm not saying is a good model, but they change the art every 2 years and they pay the artists $5,000 for each. Right. What I've heard, though, is that they also sort of suggested that all of those pieces would be for sale, and this would be good exposure for artists, and that has not really come to pass. And so they're getting fewer you know, entries. And that's a little static to me, you know, just, there's nothing magic about 2 years, except that you don't want to change it out too often. But we could have, you know, some parameters for how long. And one of my projects is I would like to come up with some changes to the mural ordinance that we can propose. And one of them is there's no reason that it used to have to be that it stayed for 10 years or something, and now it's down to 2. But what's magic about 2? I mean, you know, there should be walls that can be painted every year at a, you know, at somebody's celebration. And there's ones that should stay longer, but they, in this climate, none of them are doing very well after a couple of summers. But I think a little bit more just standardization of what we can do. And we can say we can do, you know, 10 projects of this scale in the course of the year or something. And just decide. All right.
Can
That's
you
good.
tell us about the Walk of the Inns?
So that's something, we had talked about doing a pop-up at the museum on that night. And the museum is one of the hubs for, Walk of the Inns, but the Women's Club is also where it begins. So we wanted to do like a mini pop-up tour of the public art in that area. So we kind of talked about it at the dedication at the museum that night, and some of the artists that were there were excited to, you know, help either talk about their pieces.
And we did make a little map of the ones you could walk to from the museum, which they've been handing out, which is nice. And on the back of it, I should have brought one. I'll make sure you get some copies. We also have a lot of pins that say "Art is here," if anybody would like to use them for anything.
Oh, and then we could use them.
Yeah. So,
So we
Again,
need
with that-
people for these spots, or the artists are gonna?
Sarah's going to work up with the Women's Club if we can base out of there, otherwise we go back to see if we can base like in the museum. And then whoever wanted to help, just, you know, we could pick the ones that we want to station people with, and, you know,
Yeah, but it's right after our meeting, right?
Is it that day, the 12th?
Thursday, it's our meeting, right?
oh, sh-
Right.
There's so many things on
Well, I'll tell you what, if we're going to have, no, but if we're going to have mostly a discussion at the next meeting, we could have it at the museum. And then,
The night of the Walk of the Inns.
well,
It
Yeah.
is just, it
Is
is
it
so
crazy?
chaotic. There's like 8,000 people walk through the museum to pick up flashlight. I don't know, 5,000, thousands of, it's
Okay.
more than 100 people. Thousands of people go to the museum as a hub to pick up their flashlights and their maps. So it's very busy
okay.
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, see, my thought on that after we talked about this,
I
is
usually
I've gone
leave.
to one or two of the Walk of the Inns, and it just seems like it's a very busy event, and the people who go to that are so focused on the inns or the thing, that maybe we would better serve doing our walk of our artwork on some other free Thursday night as opposed to at the same night.
That might be true. We got, there were like 600 people there just for public art night because it was the free night. And lots of people, took the maps and they talked, and there was a program going on. So we could, I think I don't know who said this earlier, but we need to just remember that we're a volunteer committee and there's not a lot of us. So,
Well, we're starting, like, 'cause we are starting later this year on some of these things, so things can push too. Like if we don't think, oh, but maybe that Thursday it's too much going on or something like that, we could do another. I think we should do like a pop-up,
sure,
mini
yeah.
art walk
Mhm.
about public art.
Mhm.
So maybe if we do it another, that's just always a great opportunity because it's one minute. It's also very
Yes, that's true. Yeah. But we could do it, and we could do something on a Sunday when the museum's free, and, we could have.
Also think about tying it into Gerald's project, because
True,
that
we
will
could
be
go-
dispersed across 5. I mean, unfortunately, the only one that's walkable from downtown would be the one at Baristo Park, which is not the prettiest park,
Yeah.
and it's not right in it. So, but still, it could be something that could be tied in.
Okay. Well,
I like the idea of doing our own thing, maybe. I didn't realize the Walk of the Inns was that huge. and
Yes, let's
maybe
do
we would
that.
get kind of buried,
it's huge.
Yeah.
okay. I'm not sure which one of these. We need to adjourn to this special meeting.
On Tuesday, the
Looking for-
26th.
Right, at
So
4
no
p.m. at
commissioners'
the,
comments, reports, requests,
do we have some? I know everybody wants to get to the,
reports of staff? All right, we ready?
yes.
I propose that we adjourn this meeting to the Public Arts Commission to our next special meeting to be held Tuesday, November 26th at 4 p.m.
At the Palm Springs Cultural Center,
at the Palm Springs Cultural Center.
the address of which I have, but I'm not sure.
2,300.
2300
East
Baristo.
Baristo.
East
Do I need to
Baristo.
redo it?
No.
At 2300 East Baristo Road in Palm Springs.
And we will
Second?
create an
I'll
agenda
second.
that has the murals on it. And we only have to do it like the Thursday before. So we'll know by then if it's one mural or two. Or even if we put both and then we say that this one's not ready to go. Okay, and then we'll adjourn that to December 12th.
And we had a first and a second, and vote.
All in favor?
I
Okay, we're adjourned.